Dreamcast had a depressingly short lifetime of only a year and a half. Yet, in such a short amount of time, Sega released hundreds of games and created a visual identity that people still talk about to this day. And the Dreamcast, much like the PS1, had its own set of eccentricities and tells brought upon by the architecture and hardware limitations. And, that created an artistic render style that people still think back on. So to explore that, here are 15 gorgeous Dreamcast games that still look amazing. Space Channel 5 Part 2. JP only. The original Space Channel 5 was extremely stylish and memorable, but its use of pre-rendered video backgrounds meant the visual quality was bottlenecked by heavy compression artifacts. For Part 2, United Game Artists changed to real-time 3D environments, and it made a massive difference. Although it was released exclusively in Japan for the Dreamcast, it did later have a worldwide release on the PS2. This sequel fully leverages the console's crisp 480p VGA to show off a retro-futuristic 1960s sci-fi aesthetic that looks incredibly clean, with vibrant colors and no muddy or blurred textures that plague the other games of its time. The rhythm-based gameplay is essentially Simon Says, with dynamic camera work and seamless cinematic transitions during Ulala's dance battles. The animations are locked at a smooth 60 FPS, and the stylized design and art style make this game look truly timeless. So, anyone from any time period can enjoy this classic game. Power Stone 2. Power Stone 2 is completely different from the original 1v1 arena brawler. Instead, being a frenetic 4-player party game where the screen is constantly filled with colorful explosions, transforming characters, and highly interactive environments. With the absolute mayhem of 4 players throwing tables, firing bazookas, and dodging stage hazards all at once, the Dreamcast still manages to push at a rock-solid 60 FPS. The best part about the game is actually its stage design, because the stages evolve as the match progresses. You might start fighting on the deck of a massive flying airship, scramble to grab an umbrella as the ship falls apart, continue the brawl while skydiving through the clouds, and finally land safely on a floating platform to finish the fight. The cartoony anime-style character designs, clean, readable animations, and bold, sharp textures make this game still look good even today. Phantasy Star Online. Long before modern live service games, Phantasy Star Online was one of the first online MMO action RPGs. It has a sleek, sterile, and vibrant sci-fi aesthetic, rather than chasing the gritty, realistic graphics that would inevitably age poorly. The developers opted for clean, stylized anime-adjacent art direction. The character models, which were highly customizable for the era, feature bold color palettes and distinct silhouettes across the Hunter, Ranger, and Force classes. Then there's the planet Raggle. Each area possesses a distinct, cohesive atmosphere, from the sun-dappled, lush greens of the forest to the haunting crystalline depths of the ruins. The game's lighting engine truly shines during combat, where the dark, atmospheric corridors of caves and mines are constantly illuminated by the brilliant neon streaks of photon weapons and the explosive particle effects of magical text. Although Phantasy Star Online 2 is fairly popular and is still getting updates to this day, there is a small but dedicated fan base still playing the original online, and you can join in, although it'll take some technical setup to do so. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. When Capcom brought their magnum opus 3v3 fighter home to the Dreamcast, they delivered an arcade-perfect port, because the Dreamcast shared the same underlying architecture as Capcom's Naomi arcade board. This means that the game didn't have to compromise a single frame of animation or drop a single pixel. The game is famous for its massive 56 character roster, utilizing incredibly fluid hand-drawn 2D sprites ported over from years of previous Capcom fighting games. With these 2D characters on these 3D rendered backgrounds, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 created an aesthetic that's full of depth that still looks great on our modern full HD screens. The game runs at a solid 60 FPS no matter what, even when the screen is filled with characters switching in and out, or performing hyper combos or high-effect special moves. The chaotic spectacle of particle effects, lasers, and typographic effects, alongside the character animations, creates a very epic spectacle that not even modern fighters can replicate. Res. Tetsuya Mizoguchi's Res was inspired by the abstract art of Wassily Kandinsky and the concept of synesthesia, and it plunges players into a stark, vector-inspired wireframe representation of a futuristic computer network, because the game relies entirely on clean, glowing geometric lines and flat-shaded polygons. Absolutely nothing of it aged poorly. If you just saw the game footage out of context, most people would have thought it was some artistic indie game. The brilliance of the game lies in how it reacts to the gameplay. Every action is accompanied by powerful visuals, music, and even vibration feedback. As you progress through the layers of a stage, your avatar evolves from a simple metallic sphere into a running humanoid. The environment pulses to the beat of the electronic soundtrack, and the wireframe world becomes increasingly complex and colorful. It really is an art piece of audio, visual, and tactile design that is just as amazing today as it was decades ago. Jet Set Radio. If there's one title that defined the Dreamcast, it was Jet Set Radio. Developed by Smilebit, this game single-handedly popularized the cel-shading rendering technique, permanently altering the landscape of 3D graphics, giving 3D polygonal models the appearance of a 2D street comic. And popular modern games like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk and Borderlands 4 show how popular the style still is to this day. The game also has amazing character designs that are steeped heavily in funk and hip-hop counterculture, and this can be felt from everything from the music, to the graffiti art, to the dances and animation. And speaking of animation, there's also the skating, which, although it's super arcadey, still plays with momentum and timing when it comes to controlling where you're going and pulling off tricks and graffiti. And then there's the dances. Everyone's dancing, from the various gangs to even the police, making the brilliant soundtrack really take center stage in an all-around artistically amazing game. Ecco the Dolphin, Defender of the Future. Created by Appaloosa Interactive, Ecco the Dolphin, Defender of the Future creates a breathtaking, highly detailed underwater world for people to explore that, people have been chasing ever since 3D graphics were complex enough to render. From the moment you dive into the first coral reef, the game dazzles you with vibrant colors, glowing sea life, and shimmering water effects. The animations are actually also really good, especially Echo's, from swimming gracefully through kelp forest to bursting out of the water for acrobatic flips. They are super lifelike and fluid, capturing the movement of a real dolphin. But the game's real achievement is its environmental design, as it shows a wild sci-fi narrative involving alien invasions and time travel, which would surprise new players who aren't familiar with Ecco. It's not just the standard oceans you swim through, as you also explore eerie shipwrecks, hostile alien structures, and ruined future timelines, such as the Hanging Waters level, a surreal stage where Ecco must navigate through levitating tubes and giant spheres of water suspended high in the sky. Skies of Arcadia. At a time when the role-playing genre was largely dominated by moody protagonists and dark, brooding, or heavily industrialized worlds, Sega's Overworks studio brought it back to the colorful fantasy roots. You play as Vice, a young, idealistic air pirate who sails a flying ship through an endless sky of floating continents. And these flying through the skies on the airship segments are absolutely beautiful, almost like a dream come true type game. It's not just the sky exploration, but the on-ground exploration is equally wonderful. And, my favorite part is hopping on a basket boat and paddling across waterways. It's just so whimsical and cute that I couldn't help but smile. The environments are varied too, from lush green jungles to bright red-yellow deserts, and you explore many different places. The combat is turn-based, even the airship battles, but it's spiced up by multiple large and wavy animations, and the camera swooping around like a bird circling the action. It keeps the visuals fun. Metropolis Street Racer. Games like Gran Turismo pursued racing simulation, and games like Ridge Racer pursued arcade fun. Metropolis Street Racer split the difference and created its own unique class of racing game. Developed by Bizarre Creations, MSR was an impossibly ambitious title for the Dreamcast. You see, these weren't just famous racetracks to drive on, but the meticulously recreated streets of famous cities like London, Tokyo, and San Francisco. By utilizing tens of thousands of reference photographs, topographical maps, and video footage, the team built urban environments that felt unprecedentedly real for the time. To add on top of that, there was a dynamic time of day system where the game reads the Dreamcast's internal clock to accurately reflect the real-world time of day in the city you were racing in. So you could be driving down San Francisco as the sunset is framed by its 30-degree hills, then switch to Tokyo to see the sunrise from the Tokyo Tower, then London for some midnight racing. There was simply no other games like MSR, even today, to be honest. Sonic Adventure 2. When you think of Dreamcast, you think of Sonic Adventure 2. It's practically the swan song for the Sonic team before it went downhill with, Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog, and tripped over itself with Sonic 06. Now, made during Sonic's 10th anniversary, it achieved a leap in visual fidelity over its predecessor. The developers scrapped the open-ended hub worlds in favor of tightly directed, linear action stages, allowing them to funnel all of the console's processing power into environmental detail and speed. Do I really need to talk about its detailed, vibrant levels, all running at smooth 60 FPS? Everyone sings the praises of this game. The character models have also received massive upgrades, featuring significantly higher polygon counts, expressive facial animations, and real-time shadows. Then there was the brilliant lighting and camera work. The custom engine allowed for dynamic environmental reflections, lens flares, and varied atmospheric effects that changed drastically depending on multiple factors, such as whether you were playing on the hero or dark teams. Dead or Alive 2. When Team Ninja brought Dead or Alive 2 to the Dreamcast, many people considered it a new benchmark for 3D animation. Running on hardware derived from Sega's powerful Naomi arcade board, the developers were able to directly push the arcade's base and focus purely on improving upon it. And it really shows with the obsessive attention to fluid motion. The devs utilized extensive motion capture with professional martial artists, ensuring that every strike, counter, and elaborate throw transitions with a lifelike smoothness that many modern fighters still struggle to replicate to this day. The character designs, which also feature flowing cloth and hair physics, move extremely dynamically, completely overshadowing the stiff, robotic feel common in its competitors. Then there are the sprawling, multi-tiered stages that are super dynamic and incredibly cinematic. For example, one stage has you start a fight on a snowy mountaintop, and when one of you knocks the other off a cliff, you watch them plummet seamlessly into a lush, water-filled cavern below to continue the brawl. It's a spectacular cinematic fighter that looks stunning to this day. Ikaruga, JP only. Developed by Treasure and released late in the console's lifecycle as a Japan-exclusive port of the Naomi arcade hit, Ikaruga is widely considered one of the greatest shoot-'em-ups ever made. The game utilizes a fully 3D engine to render its backgrounds and ships. The environments, which range from plunging caverns to man-made Marvel mechanical fortresses, look absolutely stunning, especially when the camera is swooping through them in and out at high-flying speeds. The game also has a mode where, if you can lay your TV on its side, it can rotate the display 90 degrees, just like the arcade displays. The ship designs are very creative and detailed, and seeing a 3D model of them from perspective gives way more detail and dimensionality than a 2D sprite ever could. Then comes in the color-coded, color-switching mechanic that Ikaruga is famous for. So the screen is almost constantly filled with beautifully choreographed waves of bullets, but the stark color coding ensures that the chaos always remains readable.
Yes, I'm sorry!
You don't mess with me again, got it?
Shenmue. When Yu Suzuki released Shenmue in 1999, it was a revolution in world building that set a new standard for interactive environments. Now, Sega AM2 focused on micro-level detail to bring the 1980s working-class streets of Yokosuka to life. Every drawer can be opened. Every convenience store is meticulously stocked with individually modeled items, and every single NPC follows a distinct clockwork daily routine. This obsessive attention to granular detail, paired with the Dreamcast's crisp 480p output, creates a world that still feels incredibly grounded, convincing, and lively to this day. The visual magic relies heavily on atmosphere, with the game's dynamic weather system that features realistic snowfalls, rain slicking the pavement, and accurate day-to-night lighting transitions, perfectly selling the reality of Ryo Hazuki's quest. The character models also features impressive facial animations for the era, adding an emotional core that makes these characters feel alive. While modern open-world games have drastically expanded in scale, the intimate, handcrafted, and deeply lived-in aesthetic of the original Shenmue remains a stunning achievement in 3D art direction. Shenmue II, JP and EU on Dreamcast. Shenmue II took the incredibly detailed world of the first game and, utilizing the now existing technology, focused on greatly expanding the world, leaving the quiet, small-town streets of Yokosuka for the bustling, densely populated city of Hong Kong. The game renders a massive number of NPCs at once, all following their own daily routines under the same dynamic weather and day-night cycle, creating a living, breathing cityscape that still feels way more immersive than even modern games like Cyberpunk. You really appreciate the intricate texture and dense architectural detail, especially in tight locales such as the Kowloon walled city. Then there's the final chapter, Ryo's journey into the remote mountainous region of Guilin through lush forests, past cascading waterfalls, and across misty stone paths that show that Shenmue is capable of bringing to life both natural and man-made beauty. Shenmue 2 uses careful ambient lighting, highly expressive facial animations, and detailed environments to create a visual epic that, remains one of the most stunning games of its generation. Soulcalibur. The Dreamcast version of Soulcalibur is one of, if not the only, case of a home console port being definitively superior to its arcade version. Moving from the arcade System 12 hardware to Sega's new machine, the developers completely overhauled the game's visuals. Character models received a massive boost to their polygon counts, textures were redrawn at much higher resolutions, and the arcade's flat, two-dimensional backgrounds were replaced with fully realized 3D environments, all running at a locked 60 FPS. Then there's the fluid animation and dynamic lighting. The detailed motion-captured martial arts movements gives every attack, clash, and counter a lot of weight and realism. The lighting engine highlights the intricate details of the fighter's armor and weapons, whilst the particle effects create showers of sparks and fiery trails with every weapon clash. Combined with highly detailed arenas featuring real-time water reflection and shifting skies, Soulcalibur remains one of the most visually polished and gracefully animated fighting games ever created. The Dreamcast was a real technical marvel, and Sega did everything it could to show that it was superior to its competition. From superior ports of the arcade originals to beautifully crafted worlds and art styles that define new games, the Dreamcast really did play like a dream.